Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm loud enough. I usually get complained that I'm too loud. So if I'm too loud, then raise your hand. Sorry, I'll speak a little bit slowly. I'm Leo Penning. I'm founder and CEO of NOOMI AI. I'm going to tell you about how we reimagined AI for personal development and well-being. But first of all, I like to know how you're feeling. I tend to feel a little bit overwhelmed usually at conferences. Lots of people to meet, lots of talks, lots of information coming to you. Well, also at work, people are suffering more and more from huge amounts of information, huge workload, and sometimes you feel overwhelmed, like this guy. Maybe I can see some hands. Who does this feel similar for? Yeah, a lot of people, more and more. Especially the last couple of years, where we just survived a global pandemic. We're now in the midst of an energy crisis, so there's a lot of going on in the world. People are feeling more and more stressed and depressed, but also get burnouts and stuff like that. This is becoming a huge problem. I think everybody agrees. It's becoming a huge problem. Lots of people need help with that, and especially in society, it costs a lot of money also for organizations to cope with this. So there's a lot of costs for keeping people healthy, goed in een vel zitten. I don't know the English word, but feeling good at work, it's a big topic. So burnout prevention, you know all the drill. The problem is that it's not one thing. It's not only stress related. There are a lot of factors involved in stress at work. How you feel. It's also how you feel mentally. If there's purpose in your life. If you have an illness or something like that, but also a roof above your head or enough income. I don't know, especially with the energy crisis, people are worried a lot about their income, about their costs. So it's not something you can just simply solve with going to the gym or eating healthy. It's a complex problem that you need to tackle. Luckily, there are lots of tools. There are lots of self-help books that can help you. There are a huge amounts of apps that you can use to track and monitor your well-being and your health. And there are lots of activities that you can engage in and treatments. The problem is, in the end of the day, you just have no time. You have to finish your tasks, reach your deadlines. And you need to be productive. So in the end, people start fairly motivated, and then after a couple of days, when it's too busy at work, they drop it because there's no time. So that's one problem. The other problem is lack of motivation. A lot of those tools don't really fit your personal needs and your personal preferences. So you start with the gym subscription. You start a healthy diet, and then after a couple of weeks, you just figure out, well, this is not my cup of tea, and then you leave out of it. So there's a huge gap between all those tools, self-help books, apps, and what you actually need as a person, as an individual. And I think AI can be helpful in bridging that gap, but it requires some things to change, and I think we managed to make a first step in that. I wanted to share it with you. But first of all, we need to stop treating AI as a means to, or a more complex means to just put you in another bucket. A lot of AI models, they are trained on a whole bunch of people, and then they're trying to figure out in which bucket you fit. It's more complex, but it's often how it's used. We think you're sad. We think you need more exercise. We think, stop doing that. Use AI to learn, to get to know you personally. So focus on the individual, his or her context, her preferences. That's my belief, at least. I'm curious to hear how you feel. Another thing is perfect timing. A lot of tools, they come up with a general fitness plan or a general plan to improve your health. But when how to say that, the heat is in the moment, you don't have time to think about it. So you need something that gives you a nudge, a reminder at that specific time to do a short walk, or to grab a healthy snack, or to stop with your work and make that small talk with your colleague and drink a cup of coffee. So perfect timing is essential to make it practical, all those tools. Last but not least, in the end, you need to keep engaged. You need to be motivated. And that's also, I think, where AI can help. So learning how how you keep engaged in doing this. So it does need to be fixed to one approach. So not only gamification is the means to go, not only sending smart reminders is the approach, it needs to be in combination and it needs to adapt. That's what we believe. We try to implement that in a new tool called NOOMI. It's a self-learning video diary. And we try to implement all those 3 requirements that I just told you about. And I think we did a very good job, but yeah, you're all invited to try it out yourself. But in essence, it's an AI model in the form of a video diary that runs completely on your phone. It's not pre-trained, it starts from scratch. So it just tries to analyze your daily life and then comes up with the recommendations. And that makes it private by design. So we use all the sensors in your phone. We track basically the audio in the environment, your movement, location, time. We process that all on your phone. And then based on the recurring patterns in your daily life, we try to understand you a bit better without labeling it. Oh, sorry. And based on these recurring patterns, we come up with relevant content for you, not only for you as a person, but also for the context where you're in at the moment. So that's the perfect timing and also the personal relevance, based on your recurring patterns in your daily life. And then, last but not least, we learn from your feedback. So we are not trying to only learn what is happening in your life and what content is relevant for you, but also how it fits, what you think of it, how you experience it. And that's something we do by recording a short video after or during you do a challenge, for example. And based on this feedback, NOOMI continuously improves. So this is a continuously improving tool that works together with you as like a personal body, trying to optimize your well-being. In short, NOOMI makes you smile, and in multiple ways. And that's basically because it tries to really get to know you personally. Instead of trying to put you in a certain demographic, it tries to learn you personally and comes up with the right advice, with the right exercise at the right moment. It also takes into account the motivation part, intrinsic motivation, because every time it comes with a recommendation, it reminds you of the previous time you followed that advice and what you thought about it. So that's keeping you motivated as well. Well, I've spoken a lot of words. I'm very quickly in my time, but that leaves more room for questions, so that's good. I want to invite you all to try it out for yourself and let us know what you think of it. You can now go to NOOMI AI and register for a free trial. It's available for Android, and we hope also soon for iPhone. We expect by the end of the year. But yeah, we invite you to try it out. And last but not least, we're also launching it this week, the first production release, and we're very happy with that. So you're also invited to our launch party this evening, which is happening next door. So if you go out the door to the left, there's a venue, and we have food, fun, drinks, and a DJ, which also plays saxophone live during the. So you have to go there. The doors open at 7. So any questions? Was it a little bit clear?
I'm going to come up and I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then I'm going to open it up unless there's any other questions from the crowd. So one of the things we've been talking about in this track is the way in which managers and companies can make sure that their employees have a good sense of their own well-being and their. Have you? I wonder if there are business applications in terms of the work that you've been doing around NOOMI, and that would be my first question. Are there businesses that are interested in this work?
There are a lot of businesses that are interested in our work. We're in conversation with a couple of Dutch organizations, and we trying to arrange our first pilot, basically to try it out with employees. We have been testing it the last 2 years with a lot of consumers, but we are now ready for working together with companies and helping their employees feel better and more energetic and in the end more productive. So in that sense, we're targeting business at first, yeah.
Great, that's I think really helpful. I have one personal question and then I'll open it up.
Okay.
There's a fine line in these apps between being pleasantly helpful and being slightly creepy. Have you come across that in terms of the interactions and testing that you've done with customers and how they've used it, and what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because with AI, and essentially AI that was also monitoring you in one way or another, you get the feeling of Big Brother is watching you. And we try to stay away from that in 2 ways. First of all, we prove and also show our users that all the data that is gathered and is processed on your phone. So basically you can turn off your Wi-Fi and your 4G and just keep on using the phone. Everything is processed locally using our own proprietary AI stack. So we don't use cloud AI, everything is processed locally. Also the learning part, so we're not gathering any data. So that's one thing. And the other thing is we give people the control. The users essentially give the feedback if they like it, and they also decide what to record or not. So we're not recording anything without the consent of the user.
Great. Okay, questions?
Okay.
AI biodiversity? Yeah, AI. All right.
Thank you. So I would be curious, if you talk about well-being, what are you actually optimizing for? Is there some kind of score, or what is the reward function that the AI model is optimizing for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, I didn't talk a lot about the technical details, but for who's interested, we're using a kind of self-supervised learning algorithm. So the unsupervised part is basically trying to recognize different recurring patterns in your daily life. And the supervised part is learning from your feedback. So what advice is fitting for you at that moment and what not. The scoring of the model is based on 6 dimensions we use from positive health. I don't know if it's familiar, but it's a term. It's a trend that's going on where well-being is treated more holistically, so not as a problem, but as a way to. We collaborate with an institute in the Netherlands, but I think it's also internationally well known, where we treat several aspects of well-being, so physical health, mental well-being, basically the things that I showed also on the slide. So multiple areas, and based on your feedback, so whether or not it is fitting for you at the moment, but also the video recording that you do during or after a challenge, that's how we determine the impact of the challenge. So the model learns basically how much impact the challenge has on your well-being. And that's, at first, is an assumption, but when you use NOOMI for a couple of days, it starts trying to recognize not only the different patterns in your life, but also how you react to the recommendations it gives. And then you get like a percentage, like your physical health has increased 12%. And that 12% is based on the impact that the model has learned historically. Does that make sense? Yeah, 6 dimensions. The app shows a graph over time, and that's also rewarding. So if you do a challenge, or when you do a challenge, you record a video and you get instant feedback on how much the model thinks the impact is on your well-being. You can see that in the graph, so that's also motivating. Other questions?
Here we have a question here.
Hey, so this is a really interesting concept, and it verges very close to what psychiatry does traditionally. So I'm kind of curious, the way that you explained it there, like how you give the feedback, the assessment. Like, are you within that 4 stages? Can you hear me from later?
Shut up!
Let me start again.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, like the project and like what you're trying to do with your product, it verges very close to psychiatry, what they do traditionally. So I'm kind of curious, in those 4 stages and when the supervisor, right? It's basically it's learning on its own. Now I'm kind of curious, where are you getting the framework, even the way that you said that you're adjusting, like the feedback and the recommendations?
Yes.
Does that come traditionally from psychology, or what is the...
Well, we borrowed from a lot of theories, and it's also from my own experience and what we gather from other people's experiences. I worked at a company before this where we spent a lot of time on human-machine interaction and improving the way that, and it's also very based on cognitive psychology and also that kind of theories. It's already in there. In terms of the framework, we don't adopt a specific framework. We just use the best of multiple worlds and implement it in this application. And as I said, we have been testing for 2 years with a test group of 250 people. So based on their feedback, we also incrementally improved based on their experiences. But in the end, things like keeping you motivated by reminding you of the previous time that you did a certain challenge that's something we figured out by trying it out in practice. And there's a lot of things we basically did trying out in practice how that works out and improving upon that. So we don't have a specific framework, but I'm happy to hear that you think it's very close to indeed psychiatry. So thank you for it.
Other question?
Yeah, hi, this is extremely interesting. So it's basically a cognitive therapist by AI. And I imagine the journaling itself is already very helpful. It's a very normal technology that's used in cognitive therapy a lot. Right? I'm married to a cognitive therapist, but this is why I know it. So what I was wondering, if you don't get any data out of it, how do you validate or get any external validation on whether this is working for a broader group than the, let's say, small 250-person test group?
Yeah, that's a good question. Currently, we don't do any validation. Basically, the user is validating if it works or not. And because we're testing with 200 people, we already have a kind of positive feeling on that it works well. We're also using it ourselves, and after a couple of days, you get this aha, the NOOMI already starts knowing what's right for me at a certain time. So that's already rewarding, and that you get the feedback. In the end, of course, you want to validate if that works for a whole bunch of people. So we're now trying to start this more elaborate validation programs with organizations here in the Netherlands and hopefully later internationally. But then we want to validate that also with other instruments. We're working closely together with the Institute of Positive Health. they have this, they developed this scientifically proven questionnaire, which also basically estimates where you are on these different dimensions. We want to incorporate these some of these questions in this tool in the app to do like once in a while validation track if the estimates of NOOMI are in line with this scientifically validated questionnaire. Does that answer your?
Yeah, very good.
Good, thank you.
Who wants to ask another question?
Here, I'll come grab.
Okay, I have a question. So what's like the long-term goal, right? So you're getting people, they're using this app, and then at some point, like, hopefully you want them to know themselves, right? Like,
That's the whole idea of get to know me.
yeah, so when do you like send them away from the app? Like, when do they know themselves better than the AI? Like, at what point does that happen?
You mean the AI knows themselves better, or?
Oh, you said, right, that they basically, that NOOMI knows what's best for them,
Yeah.
right? Best for the user.
Well, it tries to learn what's best for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but when does it give you that learning? Like, when do you know what's best for you? You know, because this is like the question, right?
That's a good question, and that's also why we use like video recordings of yourself and also giving instant feedback on how the impact is on your well-being. It's like a collaborative process between human and machine, so both learn from each other. It's not that NOOMI knows best at the beginning. Beginning knows crap. It just assumes blank. It's like another person trying to know you, learn to know you. In the beginning, doesn't know anything about you. So that's also how we treat our AI. So blank. We don't pre-train it without any knowledge. So we assume our AI model is able to get to learn you fairly quickly. So we focus a lot of optimizing this algorithm to already understand you as quickly as possible, but shallowly. And then while you keep using it, it becomes better and better. So the AI model is learning from you, but at the same time, because we give feedback, we show you the impact on your well-being, we remind you of earlier times that you do this and this, and what the impact is of the challenges you do. You also get a learning experience back as a user. So the whole idea of NOOMI is that both parties, so not only the AI, but also the user is learning from this experience, from this interaction. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know, because you guys are not collecting data from the users that are using the app, how do you actually improve upon your AI model? Because you already have 250 people that you tested out with for the past few years, but how do you actually improve on it, like from now on?
Yeah, so what we'll keep on doing is we're improving on the algorithm. As I said, our approach is that the AI model, so the knowledge that is in the AI model, is basically blank when you start using it. Because we assume that it's not useful to train a model and estimate, use a whole bunch of people and then say, well, we train it on 1,000 people, so we think we know what your specific preferences are and your context. That's not what we do. We basically start with a blank AI model and then optimize the algorithm to get to know you personally very quickly. That's something we'll keep on doing. So the algorithm, so trying to learn to know you as quickly as possible, that's something we continue improving, but also the interaction. So making the interaction friendly, not annoying, keeping you engaged and motivated, that's something we also continue improving.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leo. Let's all thank Leo for his talk today. I'm really embarrassed to say that it took me that whole session to figure out that NOOMI was, yeah, NOOMI. It's great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to